Welcome back to your show, Identities Umhlobo, where we are talking today about the issues of fiscal imbalance in the view that you as citizens, you and I need to know what our government is doing, and in this new dispensation, to have us as citizens lean in more to the issues that affect our lives in public life. And before we went on the break, Janet, you were already talking about the issues of developmental expenditure, but you were now saying, how does it affect citizens? How do citizens also contribute to allocation of resources around development in their communities?
Sure. So I was now at a point where I was talking about the citizens, even looking at developmental expenditure from the local tiers of government when it comes to public service delivery. So they could look at how the local authority is allocating resources, say, towards recreational facilities, council hospitals, council schools. We are living in the day of digitalization, so information technology, what is being put in terms of the long-term benefits that we can start enjoying. And when we are also talking about the developmental expenditure, I think I spoke around schools. I think is one of those major issues that we have to look into, because it is what gives the social mobility. Right. So there should be social mobility when we're looking at developmental expenditure. If you were poor today, if you didn't have access today, going forward, you must be able to access basic services and address issues of inequality. I think it is one of those issues that we have to talk about when we are talking about developmental expenditure. So it addresses a whole lot of issues, but with long-term focus. Then when it is really an opposite of what we'll have in terms of fiscal imbalance, in terms of fiscal indiscipline, and financing of recurrent expenditures. So, and citizens really do have a role, like I indicated, because one, they are the taxpayers, two, they're the taxpayers or the ratepayers, and they're actually the beneficiaries in terms of the revenue that the government collects and then allocates and utilizes.
Fantastic. So I will come back a little later around the citizens' participation, but I wanted to just quickly pose a question which you can briefly explain. You spoke about the issues of education, and I've got a question. So if we dedicated, say, money towards the payment of school fees for children, so, for instance, in the fiscus, and then we are saying the government is dedicating money towards the payment and assistance of children to go to school. It's investing in our future children. How would you classify that expenditure versus the construction of schools?
I think payment of school fees, definitely I would want to link this with also the current economic blueprints that we have. That's the Transitional Stabilization Program and also Vision 2030. And definitely the issue of building of human capital, I think, is one key issue, and the various variables that you have to put in place. And one of them, of course, you need the schools, but you can build schools, and if you don't put then the social safety nets, particularly to pay for those that cannot or those that are vulnerable, it means you have empty schools, so to speak. So it is actually important, and part of it, I think, in terms of building the human capital and the human resource,
which is falling into the long term,
which then falls into the long term developmental expenditure that we are talking about. And as we are in the TSP and also Agenda 2030, we have to know that
TSP, please?
The Transitional Stabilization Program that I've spoken about, we have to know that we don't have to leave anyone behind. There is the Sustainable Development Goals that the government is part to under the Community of Nations, the United Nations. So you don't have to leave anyone behind, and no citizen must be left behind. And when we're talking about developmental expenditure, these are the issues that we are talking about: the questioning of citizens, infrastructure development, and long-term focus and vision. And I'm sure if we are to get to 2030 being an upper middle income country, then we have to address all these fundamentals and ensure that we put structures in place that ensure that we get there.
So we need a balance between Maria Trukupad, but dedicate to any government kuenda kuvana kuno badra school fees because it's part of the long term versus kutora may be part of the budget. 95% my teachers. I mean, that's a whole conversation. But I want to come to Marvelous and say, you are touched on the principles of good governance or good fiscal management. Would you want to quickly touch on some of them, please?
Yes. The other one is that of growing the revenue streams. If you have a patent to spend, you also as well need to make sure that you increase what you raise so that you create a balance. Then this is usually achieved through investing, and there is need to invest, which takes me to the other principle as well around investment. When investing, you don't need to put all your eggs in one basket. You need to diversify your investment so that when one area of investment fails, then it does not collapse all your investments.
Marvelous.
Yeah. Investment is putting something financial to realize a profit at the end. Okay. In layman's terms, for most of us to understand, I'll break it down as simple as that. Where out of the surplus that Janet spoke of, some of the surpluses, if they are there, can then be invested elsewhere in long-term projects that will generate what? Income in the long run. So by so doing, there's need to do a mapping exercise in terms of where are we investing so that we don't over-invest in a certain area in case the investment fails. So you put your eggs in different baskets,
right,
so that if one basket goes wrong, the other baskets will remain afloat and then continue to realize something and increase on the revenue. Then it keeps the nation what? It keeps the nation going. So these are some of the principles that contributes towards making sure that the relationship reaches a state which is good for the development of any nation.
And so you've beautifully put for us the foundations of fiscal management, as well as developmental expenditure, and also its management. What is the relationship between fiscal management and developmental expenditure?
Thank you. The relationship, at first I need to emphasize that the relationship can create adverse effects. If
in layman's terms.
Okay. If not properly managed, the relationship can actually result in lack of development. I'll give an example. When there is a state of fiscal imbalance, there is less that is left for development expenditure. So when at any given time a government is spending more than it is realizing, the coffers, the state coffers, will be left dry, or they will be left without any meaningful contributions towards what? Development. So a lot might be happening on the ground, but which does not actually point to development expenditure, as was explained by Janet. Yes, I'll give an example of a family unit where a family is enjoying in terms of getting breakfast, lunch, and supper. But nothing developmental will be taking place, but yet they'll be getting everything on the table. Developmental then will, I'll use his example, taking the kids to school. That then is developmental because it's a form of investment. Or then investing towards possibly a grocery shop or even a tuck shop to start small. That will then in the long term realize some form of adding revenue for the family. Then that way it shows the relationship that when the relationship is negative, nothing takes place in terms of,
or maybe we go backwards, kana iri government expenditure ndopati kuti maroads anobva afa haasi kugadzirwa,
haachakwanisiki kugadzirwa, mahospitals ariko midhuri asi hakusina mishonga. Munhu anoenda kuhospital kuya ongononyorerwa kadhi onzi achienda kufamasi. Ndo situation inozosvika pakurichiwa iyoyo nenyaya yekuti pane pasina the developmental
kana iri positive.
Kana iri positive manje tambopa muenzaniso wemugwagwa wavakwa kubva kuBeit Bridge kuenda kuChirundu. Mugwagwa uya wakubatsira kupromota trade with other nations. Saka izvozvo in the long run zvakutiunzira mari iyoyo inogona kuzoshandiswa zvakare kunoinvestwawo kune mamwewo maareas asiyana nemugwagwa iwoyo.
We are learning a lot about how these things affect our lives, the issues of fiscal imbalances or fiscal balances, as well as developmental expenditure. And when we come back, we're going to learn more about how us as citizens may participate. Do not go away, stay with us.